As a game developer in Orlando, Florida, I was no stranger to long, sleepless nights at the office. The dimly lit building was my second home, especially during our game's crunch time. It was one of those stormy nights when the relentless rain pounded against the windows, casting eerie shadows throughout the office. Alone at my desk, the flickering fluorescent lights overhead added to the feeling of isolation. I was lost in lines of code, trying to meet an impossible deadline. The wind howled, and the thunder rumbled in the distance. That's when I heard it, a faint creaking sound, like a door slowly closing. My first thought was that it was a prank. My coworkers knew how dedicated I was to my work, and they often played tricks on me. "Very funny, guys," I muttered, not looking away from my screen. I decided to teach them a lesson by shutting down my computer, but as the screen went black, my heart sank. In the reflection, there was a woman standing behind me. Her long, jet-black hair hung over her pale face, and her eyes were devoid of any emotion. My blood ran cold, and I slowly turned around, but there was no one there. My eyes darted back to the screen, but the reflection remained unchanged. Trembling, I pushed my chair back and stumbled to my feet. The woman in the screen's reflection did the same. My heart pounded as I bolted for the office door, fumbling for my keys. Thunder crashed outside, masking my footsteps as I sprinted down the dark hallway. I didn't dare look back. I reached the lobby, slammed the door behind me, and locked it. Gasping for breath, I pulled out my phone and called the police. They arrived within minutes, and we reviewed the security footage. But there was no sign of the woman on the screen. It was as if she had never been there. I spent the night at the police station, giving a statement and trying to make sense of what I had witnessed. But there was no rational explanation. The woman in the screen remained a chilling enigma. To this day, I can't explain what happened that night in the office. I never returned to that building, and I quit my job soon after. But the image of that mysterious woman, her emotionless eyes staring back at me from the computer screen, still haunts my nightmares. The advice I have for you, dear listener, is simple. Never underestimate the power of the unknown. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. Be cautious, especially when working late in a dark and desolate place, for you never know who or what might be watching you in the shadows. I was working the night shift as a security guard in a midtown Manhattan office building when I received a call on the radio. It was unusual. The basement alarm had been triggered. I sighed, grabbed my flashlight, and made my way down to the dimly lit basement. The building was old, and the basement was a labyrinth of dusty, half-finished rooms, some used for storage, others locked away in silence. As I descended the creaky stairs, a chill ran down my spine. The basement was not a place I enjoyed being in at night. I switched on my flashlight, the narrow beam cutting through the darkness. The alarm continued to blare in the distance, creating a dissonant symphony of fear. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I froze. Several doors were smashed open, their frames splintered and broken. My heart pounded in my chest as I approached the wreckage. The eerie silence was broken only by the faint sound of dripping water. I cautiously stepped inside one of the rooms and was greeted by a strange sight. Flickering fluorescent lights and a peal of shattered monitors, wires hanging like snakes from the ceiling. The tension in the air thickened, and then I heard it. A soft, guttural whisper, like a voice from the depths of hell. My flashlight trembled in my hand, and I turned around, casting my beam into the darkness. There, in the corner of the room, a hunched-over figure stood with its back to me, wearing tattered clothes and emitting a vile stench. Fear coursed through me like ice in my veins. I drew my radio and called the police, trying to maintain my composure. The figure didn't move, but its presence was suffocating. My mind raced with terrifying thoughts as I kept the figure in my sights. The police arrived quickly, and we cautiously approached the menacing figure. But as we got closer, it turned its grotesque head and let out a blood-curdling scream. I recoiled in terror, unable to look away from its malevolent, misshapen face. And then, in the blink of an eye, it vanished into thin air, leaving behind only a lingering, sinister laughter. The police found nothing, no trace of the horrifying entity. They questioned me, exchanged worried glances, but ultimately, they left. I was alone again in the basement, shaken and drenched in sweat. I knew I couldn't stay in that building any longer. I handed in my resignation the next day, never daring to return to that basement. The memory of that night haunted me, and I could never shake the feeling that the sinister presence still lurked in the darkness. As a word of advice to anyone who encounters the unknown, if something feels off, it probably is. Don't dismiss the supernatural, for sometimes the things that go bump in the night are all too real. The call center in Makati, Philippines was an unassuming place by day, but as night fell, it took on a sinister aura. I was a new employee, still adjusting to the graveyard shift, when I heard whispers about the mysterious nurse's office. One chilly evening, I found myself queasy and feverish. My colleague Mark offered to accompany me to the nurse's office. We navigated the dimly lit corridors, our footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. As we arrived at the nurse's office, my heart sank. The door was locked, and the lights inside were off. We were perplexed. The office was supposed to be 24/7. Mark suggested we return later. Hours passed, and my condition worsened. With trembling hands, we approached the nurse's office once more. This time, as I pushed the door open, a shiver ran down my spine. The room had changed. It was no longer the sterile, well-equipped space we'd seen earlier. Now, it was barren, devoid of medical equipment, and the cold, metallic scent was replaced with an eerie, damp odor. The walls were painted a sickly shade of green, and the ceiling tiles sagged ominously. Mark gasped, and I felt an icy grip tighten around my chest as the room's temperature plummeted. We turned to leave, but the door had disappeared, leaving us trapped. In the corner of the room, a figure materialized, clad in a nurse's uniform. Her face was obscured by a surgical mask, and her eyes gleamed with a malevolent light. She extended a skeletal hand toward us, and a guttural voice murmured, "You should never have come here." Terror coursed through my veins, and I could see the same fear mirrored in Mark's eyes. We huddled together, desperate to escape the nightmarish room. Just when we thought all was lost, the room shifted again, returning to its original state. The door reappeared, and we stumbled out, gasping for air. We never spoke of that night, but we both carried the chilling memory. Mark left the call center, unable to shake the trauma. I, on the other hand, couldn't help but wonder about the phantom nurse. As I share this story with you, I offer one piece of advice. Beware of places that hide secrets, for once you cross their threshold, you may never return. The nurse's office is a grim reminder of the horrors that can lurk in the most mundane of settings, waiting for unsuspecting souls to stumble upon their malevolence.